Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Coaching. My name is Kevin Britz. I'm an executive coach and international leadership facilitator to Leadership Management International and the host of the Lunchtime series. And today we have the wonderful, interesting Flo. I always make sure that I say the names correctly. Is it Flo Chikowore or Chikowore, right?
Spot on. Well done.
Flo Chikowore, thank you for joining me. Flo, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you? And it's good to be here.
I'm fantastic. You know, I've had some, as you know, some interesting moments that I've had just today with load shedding and the power not being available. But we've made it possible and we've made it happen. And here we are doing our session as we aim to do.
Great plan, yeah.
Flo, so tell us about what you do. You know, your signature on your email quite specifically tells you, you know, speaking, coaching, consulting. But don't you want to give us an insight of yourself, who you are, and what it is you do?
Yes, of course. I'd love to. And where do I start? So I am a mom of two boys. I always start with myself.
Yes.
I am a mom of two wonderful boys, and they keep me very busy. On the professional side, I am founder and managing director, I guess, of FLOCONSULT. So that entails a couple of things. So you spoke about speaking, coaching, consulting. So yeah. I am a change leadership coach, as well as a change management specialist and consultant within that area. And I'm also a certified change management trainer, specifically human change management body of knowledge. Sounds like a very long word for HCM-BOK. So I'm a trainer in that as well, and it's a global solution. So I dabble a lot in the world of behavior change and how we as humans handle and adapt to change. So my passion, really, why I chose change leadership coaching specifically, is because there's a real need to work with leaders, business leaders, and leaders at different levels. So when I say leaders, I don't only refer to executives and CEOs and CIOs. I'm referring to anybody leading change. So if you're a project manager or program manager or a business unit leader and you're needing to lead change, it's very important how you land people-centered change. So I'm all about the people. And I'm all about the adoption process, as well as how you make people feel in the change. So, you know, there's an expression that says people they will forget what you did for them. They will forget what you brought them or what fancy gadgets you gave them, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And that's the crux of people change. When you do it right, it's like banking brownie points. I call it an emotional bank account. You must build an emotional bank account. You can't withdraw where you haven't deposited. And that's usually the challenge with big corporates. We withdraw a lot from people, but we don't deposit. And empathy is a very key factor in that. I could go on all day about that, so I'll stop at this point.
No, please, I absolutely love it. You know, I listened to how you put that information together, and I think human behavior, I was telling someone earlier today, I wanted to understand why my brain did what it did. You know, way back when a psychologist coined me as clinically depressed and said that you have to do on medication and we'll have to hospitalize you, and I completely freaked out, and I kind of went, no, I really want to understand why my brain has got to this point. I want to understand what the makeup is, and you know, and how my brain is actually making decisions and how decision processes are sort of formulating. And you know, that really does come back down to the feeling of something. And I mean, I look at your name, and the first thing that sort of triggers in my head about flow, and it's such a beautiful connection for me, because very often when I refer, and a lot of people don't understand it, but very often when I refer to the moment that you get your brain on board with for example, really understanding your values and what that is and why your values are quite specific to you, there's a certain amount of flow that happens, you know. So,
Yep.
and I know you'll know exactly what I mean by that. But it's true. It's, you know, you also mentioned empathy, and I think a lot of the time, and a lot of research that I do on a constant basis, people refer back to empathy as one of the leading useful leadership qualities to have in leadership today. And it's strange because, you know, if I can bag some empathy quickly and I'll just sort of sell it in a pill form, or then suddenly make a killing and we'd all be fine, you're right. But it's true. It's like an empathy is an intangible, but you have to then come back and go, okay, well, what does that look like? What does that behave like? What does that speak like? How do I connect in that way with someone? So, you know, like I completely resonate with what you're saying and how you sort of put that together. But tell us more about your coaching programs you run and who they are for. So give us some insight around that.
Okay, awesome. So I have a combination with the coaching programs of the one-on-one coaching and the group coaching. So, and then I'll go through the different almost subject areas. So with the one-on-one coaching and with the group coaching, I'm very much, the audience is a combination of your typical business leader, when it is change leadership coaching, as well as I find I work with heads of human resources. I work with CIOs, and the industries are all varied at the end of the day. And basically anybody within a leadership role that wants to, and usually the people that come to me are people that they're really good leaders. What they're wanting to do is they're wanting to go the extra step. They're wanting to deliver to their people in a more meaningful way. They feel they need to work more on it. And I then help them and take them to the next step, to their dream, their dream picture of what it is to be an awesome leader. If I look at the two programs that I focus the most on, the one program is Building Change Resilience. It is a topic that is very close to my heart, and I have a targeted audience that is very much, there are a lot of women that come to that program. So it's not because it's a women's program. I just find a lot of women, I work with a lot of women on the program. Building Change Resilience, and there's a little tagline on it that says, "What's your superpower?" So
yes.
I love that tagline because, you know, whenever you think of a superpower, you think people think of Superman and they think of Batman, and it's like some power that exists outside of this universe. No, we all have inner strength, and we all have got a superpower inside us. Sometimes it takes challenging situations to help you understand what your superpower is. A lot of the time, people don't really think about having a superpower, you know, but what your superpower does is in times of real turmoil, it shows up, and it shows up every single time. And that is what helps you become more resilient. So there's always a saying that says, for you to become stronger, you need to go through a circumstance that challenges you, and you come out stronger. So you don't become stronger by everything going the right way, by everything just carrying on. You don't actually exercise your resilience muscle. So resilience is a muscle that you need to actually exercise. You know, so it's the other part of the program that I run, and I'll talk a little more with the resilience side, but I run another program called Leading from Within. And it has a similar principle in that for you to excel at being a people leader, you've got to be able to lead yourself. And what does leading yourself mean? And we go through a journey. It's a 6-week program. And we go through a journey right from discovery. And I very much focus on positive thinking principles. And it's all about how do you use your past successes in order to propel yourself forward. The theory behind it is appreciative inquiry, which I'm sure you're fully au fait with. And it's essentially, how do you catapult yourself by taking what you've been good at in the past, and you build on that, because it gives you confidence when you think about your successes. When you are doubting yourself, it takes away your confidence. So everything I do and all the work I do is very much focused on pushing forward with the positive thinking. And it's the same with your typical big change management on programs. You've got to think positive, and you've got to position what you're trying to do in a way where you're saying to each of the audience groups or stakeholders, what's in it for me? So if you cannot position a change by saying and helping the person understand, what do they either have to gain from what's happening, or how is this going to be better? And even if it's not going to be better, you need to explain how they can survive inside that new situation. So it's always focused on positive thinking.
Yeah, I'm just making notes as you speak here. And one of the things I'm going to get through everything, but I was recently also chatting to another coach who sort of said, no, they want to just go through a bit of a coaching process because of COVID, because of life. She was also experiencing being a bit stuck. And we eventually got to superpower. And, in terms of how Hollywood kind of puts it out into the universe, is like it's this thing that we don't get to reach. It's this thing that we don't get to grab hold of. And Lisa Nichols' grandmother said, or she tells a story about the life lessons that she's learned from her grandmother. And her grandmother said to her, don't make me the hero because you're too lazy to be one. Wow. And I kind of, when I first heard that, I was like, wow, like that is such a big statement, because initially you're kind of going, yeah, but I'm not coping with this, and I'm not getting through it, and but when you really just grab hold of it and you kind of get your brain wrapped about, well, who am I and how am I doing me and how do I do it most effectively, then I get to be the superhero. Then I get to be the superhero of this story, of this life in this moment right now. So, the fact that you bring it up, I find that so beautiful. I think it's such a beautiful analogy for people to really wrap their brains around, because they have that disconnection from it, right? Yeah. And I do. And I think, one of my coaches one day said to me, did you ever thank your wife for divorcing you? And I was like, well, wait, hang on. I don't have to, like, you're like, what the hell? What do you mean, right? And when he sort of took it away and sort of broke it up for me and sort of said, no, think of who you have become because of that story.
Yeah.
And, the frame that he put that on, and I was like, wow, okay, yes. I'm so thankful that I got divorced. And it's so strange when people have that stance of going, no, I'm a divorcee or whatever. They have that kind of, and I'm really grateful that I got divorced. Her and I today have a fantastic relationship. We have an amazing child because of it. And it's part of that challenging life story that kind of got me to where I am today, purely based on getting my brain framed around it and going, actually, I'm so much more than I probably would have been if I stayed in that story, and I'm not in this one. So, and I think that's part of, touching on resilience, and please share more of the tips that we can take away from this, because I think that's so important.
Absolutely.
And currently finding in this situation. Tell us more about resilience. Tell us more about resilience, and what are the tips and stories you could leave with us?
All right. So I'll go to tips in a moment. What I would love to do is to just also give some context around, what resilience has meant for me, and I love what you're saying about your story, and I look back and I think the reason why, people refer to me in strange ways. They call me a tough cookie, and they say, you always land on your feet. And I looked back and I thought, well, I guess I was learning and building resilience. And if I think about it, you speak about divorce, and I also don't see divorce as negative. I should be thanking my ex-husband, and we are excellent co-parents. It was a decision that had to be made, and it was a good decision. In hindsight, I look at it and I think, yeah. And people thought I was very strange because we just mediated and we did it differently. And one of the things I learned in relation to resilience was there are times when situations are tough and you've got to learn to sometimes keep your head down and focus, because sometimes what society expects you to be doing with certain situations is not what you need to be doing. You need to be doing the right thing by yourself, what is right for you. If I look at a different situation, so I've been through a few, panel beating is an interesting thing when it comes to resilience. And in 2008, there was a bit of a recession that happened in 2008, and we were classic victims of that recession. And I called it a financial tsunami. That's what I used to say to my neighbors, and there we are in the leafy suburbs with lots of properties and lots of houses, and everything went it was like a tsunami. It was just like one fell swoop. And next thing, I was having conversations with, was it Nedbank? I think they needed to collect their Mercedes something. And I remember the young man calling. He was so nervous. And he says to me, "Ma'am, we were just wondering about the car." Then I said to him, "Oh, would you like me to wash it for you?" He couldn't believe it. He was like, "Ma'am, I've never ever heard a customer say that for repositions." I said, "Honey, come and get it. It's just stuff." And I remember thinking, going through that, and when your neighbors are like, "Can we help?" I said, "Look, if you want to help, come and buy the basketball stand. What do you need? You want to come and buy something? Come and buy something. That's the way you're going to help me." Because that way I wasn't walking away with a whole bunch of other baggage, of other people's stuff. And you learn resilience. You learn it the hard way. But if I look at and even just in terms of being able to co-parent successfully, that is true resilience. And one thing I can say, just in terms of some tips around building change resilience, and some of these tips I use within my coaching as well. The first tip is, when you are in a tricky situation, there is no room for ego. You've got to put your ego aside. Because for you to get through a difficult situation, sometimes you need help. And I had help along the way. I had the most amazing lady. She was a financial planner. And I remember saying to her, I couldn't afford her. And I said to her, "I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start." And then I went and started my own business because I'd been working for big consulting firms, etc. Then I had my first son and decided to be closer to home. And I went retail entrepreneur. And I said, "I don't have a job right now. What am I going to do?" And she says to me, "But you have your furniture." I said, "Yeah, I know." Then she says, "But that's asset, sell it. And then you can start somewhere." So she helped me by simply saying those things. So by me being open about the situation, and it's vulnerability as well. So vulnerability is important. It's tough to be vulnerable. It is. But when you're vulnerable, first of all, other people learn from you. Other people grow because of you. And you are also able to get the help that you need, So for me, that's one of the tips. You need to challenge yourself to be vulnerable, and challenge yourself to put your ego aside a little bit. It's very tough because our ego is a protective force around us as well. But sometimes it just has no place. And if also the other tip is, I was talking about how people don't know what their superpower is. And I've always said my superpower I discovered was resourcefulness. So I'm very resourceful. I knew where to I would find out. If I didn't know, I would go and find out. So a superpower can be something very simple. It can be the ability to listen. It can be problem solving. It's a quality that simply means you repeatedly do it exceptionally well. So discovering that, sometimes you talk to friends and family. Sometimes it's co-workers. If you have co-workers, they'll tell you what they notice most about you. And that's your superpower. So, sometimes it just takes some reflecting. And obviously, you know, the ability to work with different people, that's also a superpower. But people don't think about it as a superpower. But when you do it repeatedly and consistently, there you are. You've got your cape and you're a superman or superwoman, you know. And
Yeah.
the other tip I would give, in terms of building your change resilience, is one of the reasons people go into that cycle of, you know, in the psychology world, we call it negative anticipation. You know, where you think everything around the corner is just going to be a disaster. Everything. People get anxious,
Yes.
anticipatory anxiety, and everything that comes with that. And a lot of the time, it is also because sometimes you need to educate yourself more about whatever situation you're in. So, for example, with the bankruptcy, I knew more about liquidations and sequestrations than I think even the lawyers. I did my research because I needed to understand what was happening. I even invited the sheriff for tea when he came to the house because I was like, well, might as well get to know the man. And he was pleasantly surprised. There was a nice old man, the Randburg sheriff, and that was many years
Yeah.
ago. And I also discovered that I needed to find a litigation attorney because your big lawyers who work for the banks, etc., they need to hire, they have very important law firms they use. So if you come along with your little lawyer, they're not going to talk to them. So
Yeah.
if you can, I had a friend of a friend who was a very senior lawyer. He helped me. And as a result, a lot of the stuff that could have gone wrong was actually contained because they were talking to each other. So I discovered things like that, you know. So one of the things you must do is have a plan A. So this is what I'm going to do, but have a plan B and have a plan C.
Yeah.
So then you feel like you have more control because you know that if this doesn't work, I'm going to try this. And plan A, B, and C work in any scenario, whether it's an organization doing business continuity planning, you know, they call the BCM plans. That's a plan A, plan B, plan C. In
Yeah.
your own life, if you're not sure you're going to be able to pick up your child from school, what's your plan B? Do you have a plan B? Do you have a plan C? So you must always have a plan A, B, and C
Yeah.
from a resilience point of view. The other tip is have a life mantra. You know, a lot of people do reflections or they'll meditate or they take time to write a journal or a gratitude journal. It's very important to have a mantra that you repeat in your mind that gets you through the darkest points of whatever situation it is. My mantra was, this too shall pass. It's not forever, it's going to pass. You know, like somebody says it might pass like a kidney stone, but it will pass, you know, it will pass.
Yes.
And also things like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, although that one is really overdone. But you just need to find a mantra that works for your life, you know,
Yeah.
and just remember.
Yeah. Even from I remember from, I mean, way high. I was probably 8, 9 years old. Chesney Hawk sings a song that named "I'm the One and Only," and I remember thinking, "Wow, you know, I love that song. It was a great song in its time." But throughout my life, I kind of, you know, had that as my mantra.
Yeah.
And there's many times that I've had where I didn't believe it, where I failed hopelessly at it. But you know, I'm so lovely. I just love the fact that you bring that up, because I think you do really need a mantra. It really gives you through those times of despair and those times that really where you just don't have the answers.
Yeah.
You know, some of the notes that I'm making here is on the other side of failure, and I think, you know, people you know, think that this thing is going to be lasting forever, and this is going to be the inevitability of my life. And things change. You know, COVID is what it is right now, and I know a lot of people going, yeah, I hope we go back to some kind of normal, but maybe that's not required. Maybe it is about having that new normal and people adapting and coming up with new strategies and coming up with new ways to do life around resilience, like you're saying, because maybe it's about time that we kind of go, actually, what we've been doing up until now has worked, but something needs to change, right?
And maybe there's a reason all of this happened, right?
Yeah.
So you always have to think, you know, there is a lesson to be learned. So find the lesson, But secondly, COVID-19 feels like a reset button. Like the whole world has pressed, somebody pressed reset, and that reset means, when you reset your laptop,
Yeah.
you can't go back to the old stuff because it's factory settings, right?
Yes.
So we've been reset to factory settings, and it's an opportunity to design something new, to design something better. We can fail forward.
Yes.
It will be different. And part of resilience is there's got to be a point at which you can acknowledge the past, you can honor the past, but part of building resilience is to look forward, not to keep looking back. Socrates said something like that about, with change, you've got to look forward. I'll find that quote. I have it in my head somewhere.
Yes.
You've got to be looking forward, because the past is not coming back to help you. And there is an expression I sometimes use, and people think it's a bit. They think it's like quite hectic. I said, "What do you mean?" And I say, "No one is coming to rescue you. Nobody's coming to rescue you. You're going to have to just pull up your socks, pick yourself up, and move on." It's easier said than done, and I know that different personality types, even we've all got different levels of resilience, and some of us are more high functioning than others, but a big part of it is understand what your superpower is and work with that, and it will help you out of some of these situations. And I'll tell you a funny story, Kevin. I went through a time in my life where I think it was somewhere in the middle of all of this financial tsunami, and it was just really quite crazy.
Yeah.
And I was having my second son. Let's just add excitement to that. And I actually sought the help of a clinical psychologist. I thought I was losing my mind. I would appear normal to everyone, and I was always smiling, but things were not okay in my head. So I went and I saw the psychologist, and I had a counselor for a few months. The psychologist says to me, he asked me all these questions. Then he says, I was expecting him, by the way, to admit me into hospital because I needed a week of rest. He says to me, you're quite highly functioning. I said, I'm sorry. That's not what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear that I was losing it. So he says, well, really, besides the financial strain, but you've handled it very well because you've got 2 consulting jobs you're doing. And I'm also a qualified real estate agent, so I was selling houses, consulting, life was happening. He said to me, but you're very highly functioning. And I'm thinking, but I don't feel this way. Then he said to me, well, maybe you're just exhausted. And I was also dealing with, the marriage issues. And he said to me, just remember, you've got literally 20 to 30% of your life that's not quite working. Everything else is perfectly fine. So actually, 70% of my life was fine. 30% was a bit tricky. And that is what was coloring my entire existence.
Yeah.
So we tend to combine all our parts of our wheel of life, and we feel like everything's falling apart.
Yes.
When sometimes you've just got to unpack it and realize it's not everything. But seek help where you need to seek help. Absolutely. Organizations seek help from specialists. We seek help when we have medical problems. We must seek help when we're feeling overwhelmed. That's why those specialists exist. They're doctors for our minds, So building resilience is also acknowledging when you need help. That's very, very important. And I've got 2 more tips. So the other tip is, and maybe I've been doing a little bit of that. Try and maintain a sense of humor. You need to learn. You need to laugh at yourself.
That should be tip number 1. I promise, Flo. There's moments I tell you that things go like today. Like the no power, and eventually I just sat back and I went, well, how absolutely ridiculous is this? This is the funniest thing. I'm trying to have shows online and record it, and I don't even have power to do it. It's completely the humor in the ridiculousness. It's like, wow, okay, I can find some humor in this. It's so funny.
You need to try and maintain a sense of humor.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you, the week before I knew that I was probably going to be moving out of our big home, etc. years ago, right? My greatest worry was, is the sheriff going to take my clothes? And then I thought, And then he's going to take my children's toys. And I remember saying to my sister, listen here, you need to come to my house. We're moving all my clothes to your house because you're being ridiculous. I don't care. In the middle of the night, there we were moving my entire wardrobe, 3 friends, into a car to move them to different houses. So, no, he can't take my clothes. My clothes are very special to me. And we sat there in the middle of the floor with these clothes and we were laughing. It was so ridiculous. It was funny,
Yes.
But I learned to find funny, just humorous parts of the situation. And it's the same with COVID-19. There have been times, think of the times we all went to stockpile on all sorts of ridiculous things. We didn't even know where we're buying them, right? So you learn to laugh at yourself, and I remember early on, around March, one of my clients needed me to come to site because I was now helping them with COVID-19 change management. They asked for my help. Yeah. And I'm freaking out here and I'm thinking, okay, so I'm going to danger when I was sitting nicely in my house, chilling, and now I must go on site. But I knew it needed to be done. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go. I'll put on my mask, I'll do my thing. But I found the easiest way to allow people to handle the situation was I used to joke with the security guards. I have the one security guard who keeps telling me that he's going to marry me. And I said, you don't have enough cows, my friend, and we're joking and we're laughing. But it's very important. That sense of humor does biological things as well, if you think about it. It's your dopamine, it's your endorphins, it's your feel-good hormones, and we need those, So in building resilience, part of building resilience is your well-being. And you feel better when you laugh.
Yes.
So there's science to it, as you know. So I think that's very important. Organizations need to remember that as well. Particularly with their teams, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of strain when they have all these meetings online and everybody's trying to show up and look like they've got everything sorted. Crack a joke. Let people laugh. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, this too shall pass, and it will.
Absolutely.
So, and then my last tip is, actually, I spoke about this a little bit. I spoke about focusing on your successes.
Yeah.
Remind yourself what you're good at. Remind yourself how far you've come. Each one of us that is still living and breathing right now needs to remind ourselves that we're actually in a very special group of people. We are coping. We are trying to move forward, but it's very much to say, what is it that makes me able to go through a situation? What's my superpower? So it's So those are my tips.
Thank you. I resonate with them so closely. I don't know if you know about or ever heard of Mel Robbins.
I have heard of Mel Robbins, but I'm not sure in what context. I think it was actually a colleague that mentioned the name.
No, she says exactly what you say. And, no one is coming to help. No one is going to come quickly take you under the arm.
That's probably where that came from, because somebody said it to me. I think it was a counselor who said it to me, and it's been a mantra.
Yeah, no one's gonna sit you down and say, "Come on, you can do it. You can do this. You've got the confidence." No one's gonna do it. So you kind of just resolve, take that massive leap and step forward and go, "Okay, cool. This is it. Where to from here?" And find some humor in that and kind of go, "Wow, my life is completely ridiculous right now. What am I going to do about it?" And take that stance. It's so important. But one of the things that I do I know Brené Brown, she does that quote, right? And you mentioned vulnerability, but that quote that she does with Theodore Roosevelt that says it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out the strong man stumbled, or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena. Yeah. And I think, when I first heard that, I was like, wow, that is poignant. It's significantly impactful, because that's exactly where we're at. And we find ourselves in COVID, speaking about resilience today. And it's not about the guy who's in the arena, falling and failing and getting it wrong. You know,
Yeah.
I speak about getting it wrong so much that I do all these recordings with so many coaches, and I look, I watch them back, and I am obviously the biggest critic of myself. And I think, oh, I must stop doing that. I must stop doing that. But then I get to a point where I'm going, do you know what? I'm not perfect. I don't proclaim to be perfect. And as I'm doing what I do, I too am learning how to do it better, right?
Yes.
So, Flo, thank you. I just wanted to share that because I know it's so significant that having that vulnerability is it's actually such a powerful part. And being in the arena, you know, speaks to so many who are doing it currently, and so many South Africans that actually, people in the world, not just South Africans, but people in the world who are actually thinking, wow, what is this for? Why am I doing what I'm doing?
Yes.
But you're the one that's in the arena. If you're doing something, keep doing it. Fail forward, like you say. And keep doing it. But Flo, if we could just wrap this up, how do we get hold of you and learn more and find out more and stay in touch with you?
Oh, awesome. I'm quite easy to get hold of, really. So on LinkedIn, my handle, you just look for Florence Chikowore. It's got my full name on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And on Facebook, there's Flo Consults, Change Leadership Coaching. So just think Flo Consults. That's two things.
There we go. It's the easiest.
And, yes, and on Coffee Chat, if you go onto the Coffee Chat website, you just look up Florence Chikowore, and there I am. And also, there's my website, which is www.floconsult.co.za.
Fantastic. So guys, if you are listening, if you are tuned in and watching this, all of this information will be in the description box below. As I always say, please tune in, please like the YouTube videos, please share them. Flo, thank you for your time. I absolutely loved this conversation, and it was so much fun chatting to you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks a lot.
I will chat to you soon. Thanks you.
Thanks. You chat soon. Bye.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Ciao.